Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. It is Monday, February 2nd. Certainly pleased to have everybody here. We'll start our meeting by introducing you to your City Council.
Council members Jamison.
Here.
Karski.
Here.
Kiley.
Here.
Rolfing.
Here.
Staggers.
Present.
Anderson.
Here.
Erickson. Here. Erpenbach. Here.
Thank you very much. We start our meetings here with an invocation. We're very blessed to have Pastor David Edge of Zion Lutheran Church here. Welcome, Pastor. Thank you so much for being here. What we'd ask you to do is to stand for the invocation and then remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor?
Will you bow your heads with me as we pray? Heavenly Father, you tell us through your word in James chapter 1 that if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask, and it will be given to him. And so here we are, God. We are asking for wisdom. We thank you for appointing these wonderful men and women who are gathered here to do what is best for those that live here in Sioux Falls. We know that in Romans chapter 13 that you give us good government for the sake of having justice being fought for giving us roads, for giving us schools. And so we ask in this time that through your wisdom, that these appointed leaders can do what is truly best for the good people of Sioux Falls, for those that you love, as they give us good civil government as well as justice. And we pray this in the name of our God, beloved God, the Creator, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
See, Megan or Pam? Lauren. Well, Lauren, that's even better. Welcome, Lauren. Lauren, would you mind introducing yourself to the people of our town, please? Thank you.
I'm Lauren Forsch with the American Heart Association.
Thank you. Lauren, thank you so much. I do have a proclamation I'd like to read, Lauren, and the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas heart disease is the #1 killer of women, yet 80% of the cardiac events can be prevented. Whereas cardiovascular diseases cause 1 in 3 women's deaths each year, killing approximately 1 woman every minute. Whereas an estimated 44 million women in the U.S. are affected by cardiovascular diseases. Whereas heart disease is the #1 killer of South Dakotans, with more than 1,600 deaths from heart disease occurring each year in our state. Whereas 90% of women have 1 or more risk factors for developing heart disease, yet only 1 in 5 American women believe that heart disease is her greatest health threat. Whereas since 1984, more women than men have died each year from heart disease. Whereas women comprise only 24% of participants in all heart-related studies. Whereas women are less likely to call 911 for themselves when experiencing symptoms of a heart attack than they are if someone else were having a heart attack. Whereas women involved with the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women movement, they live healthier lives, and nearly 90% have made at least one healthy behavioral change. Whereas Go Red for Women is asking all Americans to go red by wearing red and speaking red. Get your numbers. Ask your doctor to check your blood pressure and your cholesterol. Own your lifestyle. Stop smoking. Lose weight. Exercise and eat healthy. Raise your voice. Advocate for more women-related research and education. Educate your family. Make healthy food choices for you and your family. Teach your kids the importance of staying active. Don't be silent. Tell every woman you know that heart disease is their #1 killer. Raise your voice at goredforwomen.org. Now, Lauren, therefore, I am Mike Huther. I am the mayor of the town called Sioux Falls, and in recognition of the importance of the ongoing fight against heart disease and stroke, do hereby proclaim Friday, February 6, 2015 to be National Wear Red Day in Sioux Falls, and urge all citizens to show their support for women and the fight against heart disease by commemorating this day by wearing the color red. By increasing awareness, speaking up about heart disease, and empowering women to reduce their risk for cardiovascular disease, we can save thousands of lives each year. Lauren, thanks so much for being here. Just a round of applause, if you don't mind. Thank you. Thank you so much. Council will now move to our consent agenda. Any motions, changes?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Been a motion to approve this by Councilor Rolfing. Councilor Anderson Jr., would you second it? Thank you so much. Councilor Staggers.
Yeah, I just have a couple items.
Please.
First of all, under Highways and Streets, project, Public Works signage study, and the amount's only $15,000. Under Water Resources Investigations, Joint Funding Agreement, it's a little more expensive, $357,000.
Councilor Staggers, we'll certainly talk about those later on. There has been a motion, and it has been seconded to approve this agenda. On those two items, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison,
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Ralphing.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson. Yes. Erpenbach. Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you. Council, our regular agenda is before you. Any changes?
Move to approve Erpenbach.
Second, Kylie.
Councilor Bach has made a motion to approve our agenda tonight, seconded by Councilor Kiley. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Ralphing.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson. Yes. Erpenbach. Yes.
That is also passed 8-0. Welcome to tonight's meeting. Certainly pleased to have you all here. Folks, this is an opportunity for you to engage your council on really any topic that you'd want. If it is a topic later on, we'd ask you to keep it, and it's a second reading, to hold your comments till that time. But other than that, come forward, just introduce yourself to the people of our town, and we'd ask you to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Mr. Weiderman, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council.
Evening.
I'm going to mention this $500,000 that was given by the City Council, instigated by the Mayor, I understand, to private tennis court. I don't know how this came about. I mentioned it once before, but I do know that something like this was happening in Illinois when Blagojevich ended up in the pen. And I want you guys to be aware of that. You guys want to follow the Robert's Rules of Order. You don't do it yourselves, so why should we? I hear so much bickering. I was in Aberdeen and was nothing but embarrassed. We were watching a 5-foot TV last week at the council. Everyone, well, there were two mainly that belittled one of your fellow council members. He's one of the most intelligent ones on this board. He served in Pierre. He served here a session before this. He asked some of the most intelligent questions while you people just sit and rubber stamp. And I appreciate you, Mr. Karski, excusing yourself from the early meeting that you had with the ambulance scenario. But I also think that there's a member of the swimming board that needs to excuse herself. And she knows who she is. I don't understand why when the pool for Drake Springs, we were working on that, and we were held to $4.9 million. Now all of a sudden, there's a swimming pool supposedly going to be, I'm not sure it will be, at Spellerberg Park. It starts out at 19.4, then it goes to 19.8 mil. And all of a sudden, they want more money, which we weren't allowed to do at the Drake Springs pool. We were locked in. This wasn't even on the ballot. It was an outdoor pool that we voted, everybody basically voted against. So now you're playing a game with millions of dollars of our money, and I don't think it's funny. We go to this ambulance scenario. Jay Major has put his whole life and blood and soul into his service, and I think it's a dishonor for the way he's being treated. Now you want this new ambulance service to be able to go over to Brandon and take service away from Brandon, where they can compete against him, but he can't compete against the ambulance service that you want in Sioux Falls, and these people are supposed to be from this area, and you're kissing their hind end for some reason. I don't understand why. Thank you.
Mr. Weideman, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Folks, anybody else? Welcome, sir.
Evening, Mayor, council members. Charlie Roberts, ex-official from the Spellerberg Pool Group. Let's get the point clear right away. Spellerberg people were never against an indoor pool. We just didn't think that was the best location, and we begin to wonder even more as the event center and so on and so forth have transpired, and really we've seen an influx of traffic. But enough. The Sioux Falls Argus Leader recently posted a commentary concerning the planned indoor aquatic center to be located in our neighborhood, Spellerberg Park. There was an effort last year to vote for a properly sized outdoor pool, and though questionable legal or proper means were used by our city administration, it was defeated. Even though our efforts failed, we have not stopped caring about our neighborhood park or the city. The recent press conferences at last week's city council information meeting and now tonight's item 36 continue to show the arrogance of this administration. Where is the poll showing 70% approval rating? Or are those numbers just taken because 15% of the people voted no to an outdoor pool? It doesn't translate. It seems the park department does not want anyone to be a part of their plan that is not already in the loop. In other words, if you weren't in this group that has actually been involved for the last 3 years, you weren't invited or asked to take part. You had the opportunity, but you weren't asked. This project continues to be a moving target, the indoor pool. Nothing is ever what it seems. The city controlled advocate education programs, which were in possible violation of state law, the way they were ran. They confused the voters with the indoor pool plans, and even now, what we've seen and what we hear compared to what we saw and were told are more confusing, and that has cost us $47,000, and there wasn't even an indoor pool on the ballot. If you remember the ballot, it said nothing about indoor pool, it just said you want an outdoor pool. And so, okay, now with your smoke and mirrors seem to have worked. Just like the Drake Springs planning, the neighbors have been pushed aside. So the question is asked, was there actually a representative who was really in close proximity to Spellerberg Park? The indoor pool was to have a total cost of $19.4 million. Once the vote happened, the price jumped to $19.8, and now we're asked to approve $23.7 million. And this is nearly a 20% increase for what? And here I might interject, while we were collecting signatures for petitions, we were telling people it's going to be more, and we were not nicely told we were not telling the truth. But it's gone up, and it's almost to that $25 million mark. The real question is, what is this extra money for? We question the funding because the city has a track record of not telling us anything straight up. In other words, it's going to be, this is what it is, and then it is. But it's always gone a little over. And some of it you can understand, or I can understand. We question the funding because the city has a track record of not telling us anything straight up. City Hall even tells its own legislative body what is going on. When they do, the mayor scolds them for not having their own plan. This pool is not being built with cash. We're using borrowed bond money required to be refinanced or paid back in a couple of years. You know, for these levees preventing the 100-year floods. Number 10 on the mayor's list. The park department is postponing many projects, or at least they say they are, to pay for this additional monies. I guess the parks won't get dumpster fences, which is a city, they're working on a city ordinance that way for the garbage, trash containers and so on to be enclosed, but we're going to do away with that. City streets. If you've driven around any, some of the streets are really great, but a lot more are getting worse. What happens to the tennis courts? You know, we had a really nice national, prominent tennis court facility there at Spellerberg, and if you drive by now, you just see a nice flat ground all the way over. Is it going to be replaced? Is it not going to be replaced? Where's it going there? On the previous drawings showing a 69,000 square foot building, and at that time it promised a therapy pool, a rec pool, and more outlandish promises have been scaled back to 59,000 square feet. I was involved in all of that, and when we would go to the meetings and ask about things, they would say this and this and this and this, and then when we'd come to a meeting, they'd say, oh no, but yet when it was portrayed or brought out, it was in there. And now they're saying yes, but now we're taking them back out of there. A 15% decrease in size with a 20% increase in cost. Okay, here's what we were promised. This is what we said we're going to get. This is what we were shown. This is what we're told we're going to get. And now we're actually going to do this. So, what happened to the slides, the current pool, the outdoor splash patio? Why don't the restrooms even have toilets? I guess we got outhouses. Apparently outdoor water activities have been eliminated.
Roberts, Mr. Roberts, you're at 6 minutes, sir.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll say thank you.
Thank you,
And I
Mr.
will let it
Roberts.
go.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Make it a great night, sir. Folks, is there anybody else who, yes, welcome.
Hi, Jay Major, MedStar Paramedic Ambulance.
Welcome, Jay.
And Mr. Mayor and Christine, I believe you were the two that weren't here for the previous meeting that we had. There was a lot of shots across the bow as I was sitting in the audience here about this ambulance issue. And I'm not going to speak a lot about that, but here's what I want to tell you all so you understand where we're coming from. In the Argus Leader, I read to where your health director kind of thinks she knows why we had protested. And as we stand before you, nobody here knows why we protested because we haven't talked about that yet. Here's what you should know, though. We're following your rules. Your rules are we had to fill out our ambulance application, and a lot of that we didn't really agree with, but we filled it out the way we were supposed to. We handed it in. We met your minimum criteria, and then we met some of your other criteria on your scoring system. From that point, we disagreed. And so part of that disagreement is it goes to the first disagreement panel, which happened to be some of the same people that reviewed our application in the first place. The second was, no matter how the city attorney put it here to the people of Sioux Falls, the second one is a person that the city chose who paid the bill to. I get it. Now there's two other options that we have, actually three. Today there shouldn't be a first reading because your own ordinance says that if we're still protesting this thing, there shouldn't be a first reading on this ambulance ordinance. My attorney's not here, and there's a lot of legal things I'm not going to talk about, but I'm going to say this. I didn't plan on standing up until all the shots across the bow. I was going to listen. The thing is, we're following the rules that this commission, this body, put in front of us for the ambulance ordinance. We disagree with it. We disagree with the way the process was handled. We have our own disagreements. Some of those are legal disagreements, and some are matter-of-fact disagreements, and some are just differences of opinion disagreements. But we have a right to be heard. And I think that the city itself, I think it's beyond yourselves to find, if you now disagree with my disagreements, that you can disagree with your own policies that says I have a right to take it to circuit court, which we did. We have one in circuit court, and next week there's going to be something filed sometime in federal court, because that is a strong disagreement that we have with the City of Sioux Falls and the panel and the recommendations of Jay Fitch. Strong, honest disagreements. Because I promise you this. Go to MedStar right now and look at our system. Go to Rural Metro, go to AMR, go to Paramedics Plus. If you look at our systems, you will probably find 4 fantastic systems. Okay? There's not one system that's 600 points and one that's 1,500 points. They're all really good systems. The issue is the point system that you made to come up with how you decided to do this. We disagree with that. But we also have some other disagreements that will be in front of you in a short while. I'm here just to tell you, Mr. Mayor, that unlike many, many, many years ago, I'm following your rules. I'm just asking the city that you follow your own rules. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jay. Appreciate that. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Scott Erisman, Sioux Falls.
Welcome, Scott.
I saw something on Friday night that kind of made me chuckle. We talk about how we have to have all these indoor recreational facilities in South Dakota or in Sioux Falls. You know, I've grown up here most of my life. I've done a lot of stuff outside. We used to spend hours outside sledding. And I was driving by the skate park by my house, 8 o'clock on a Friday night, and there were 6 kids out there skateboarding and having a blast. And I thought to myself, I wanted to pull over there and go, why are you kids out here skating on a January night when you could be swimming indoors? Oh, that's right, we don't have an indoor pool yet. But I think it's funny how we talk about how we need all these indoor recreations because there's nothing to do outside in the winter. The kids are getting fat. These kids were not fat. They were skateboarding their heart out. So just want you to know there's lots of activities outside that we can do in the wintertime. We wear a nice coat and hat. I was also reading a story by Steve Young, I don't know if it was Saturday or Sunday paper, about painting dumpsters. I thought that was a fantastic idea. When I was in Fort Collins a couple years ago, they paint all the transformers in town. The local artists paint them, you know, electrical transformers. They also do it in Vegas. It's huge in Vegas. And I thought to myself, instead of having all this fancy fencing and everything, why don't we ask businesses in the city of Sioux Falls to put out RFPs and decorate these dumpsters in art? Why do they have to be red or yellow or green? I mean, it's a pretty simple solution. But let's get to something a little serious. So the people of Sioux Falls voted for snow gates. They went out on a petition drive, they put it on the ballot, and it passed by a lot. I've often told people that snow gates are not a new service. They're taking a service that we already have and making it better. Snow removal. The city has to remove the snows from the street. All they're asking is, you remove the snow from the end of my driveway that I don't own, that the city owns. That's all we're asking. It was approved by a large amount. It's a city ordinance. Now, what is a city ordinance? It's a law. Okay, so we are asked by the city to scoop our sidewalks. If we don't, we get fines. We get a contractor to come out and fine us. It was funny, I was walking up here, I saw the guys scooping the sidewalk out here in front. It wasn't even a city employees, it was a private contractor. And I told him, I said, you better hurry up and get that done. You might get a fine. And they all just stared at me. So I guess if the rest of us have to follow city ordinance by keeping our sidewalks clean, why doesn't the city have to follow city ordinance and use the snow gates properly? The last 2 snowfalls on the other side of my street, the snow gate was used properly and there was very little snow left. And their driveways are longer than mine. On my side of the street, all the way down, piles of snow, like they didn't even use them. The thing is that if they drop them early and pull them up late, they work. I'm sorry. I've watched hundreds of videos of snow gates that were not even superior to the ones we have. And they work if they are used properly. And what are the repercussions for the city if they're not following their own ordinance when they're making the rest of us follow our own ordinance? So I had a friend call me today. We were talking about it. And you know what they said to me? They go, well, we should put numbers on the back of the snow plows. And if you see a snowplow operator not dropping the snow gate properly, you can call in the number on the back of the snowplow, and you know who's not doing it right. I don't understand this where, as citizens, we are obligated to follow an ordinance. But then when the city can't follow an ordinance, they go, we're trying our best. I mean, that's basically what we've been told. You go on the city website today, and that's basically what they told us. We're trying our best. I can't say that if I don't scoop my sidewalk. I can't go out to the contractor and go, I'm trying my best. What I'm saying is if the citizens have to follow these ordinances, the city has to follow these ordinances. Plain and simple. Snow gates are not rocket science. They're pretty easy. I worked on a farm. I worked with a lot of hydraulic equipment. It takes practice. I understand that. But this is law now, and we need to use them, and we need to use them properly. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wanted to engage the council tonight on any topic? Very good. Thank you so much for those comments. We appreciate that. We'll now. Oh, Councilor Erickson?
I'm sorry, I just had a question for our city attorney. With the statement that was made about not being able to vote on something when there's an appeal process or a dispute, if you could enlighten us on that as far as how that works.
I could do that at the time of the first reading. Counselor, would that be acceptable?
That would be great. Thank you.
Councilor, you're talking about the ambulance. Is that correct? Yes. Would you mind if we waited until that time? Thank you. Very good. Councilor Staggers had 2 items he wanted to address from the consent agenda. One of them involved highways. It was a $15,000 study. Councilor Staggers, questions, comments?
Mark, did you want to say anything about that?
Did you have a question about it, Councilor Staggers, or you're just questioning the spending of the money?
I'm going to vote against this, and there's a good reason why I'm voting against this, but go ahead, Mark.
Do you have a specific question for me, Councilor?
Well, I've talked to you before about this, and I expressed my confidence that we have many people in city government that can go ahead and do this. And so why waste the $15,000 when we do have many people that could do it?
Certainly. Well, first of all, the reason for the project is we have a need to replace signage. In some cases, if you drive on the Street Division campus, there's a sign that's out there probably in the late 70s, still refers to it as a department, not a division prior to. There's the public drop-off in that area where we've seen the impact of having digital signs to create good, more timely messages. So the reason we actually went to the market and actually hired Confluence, or would ask for your support to hire Confluence, they're a local architectural firm that they specialize in working with owners on items like this. On the other thing too, it's a capacity issue. This is if I would say it's our harvest season. We're starting to get ready for this next season's construction. Most of our project managers have anywhere from 13 to 17 projects, and I just don't have the capacity right now to do this. That's why we go out to the local market. So I think it's a fair price for what we're going to do. The nice thing is then we'll actually be able to standardize the signage not only at the street division but across other city facilities, and it'll be good money spent.
Councilor.
Move to approve Erpenbach.
There's been a motion to approve this item by Councilor Bach, seconded by Councilor Karski. A roll call vote, please.
If I could say one quick comment. I'm still voting against this, Mark,
Okay.
but once again, I'm still very confident that we have city employees that can do this. So in effect, I'm voting for confidence in them.
Okay, very good.
Councilor Sayers, that's exactly the same thing you said in the beginning, and you just repeated it, but thank you.
Well, I'm
A roll call
hoping I'm
vote, please.
convincing them.
Council members Jameson,
Yes.
Karski,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Staggers,
No.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach. Yes.
That has passed 7-1. Councilor Staggers also had another item he wanted to discuss. It involved water resources, and it was for $357,000. Councilor Staggers?
Right. I've talked to Mark about this before, and I think you kind of agree that this would be something useful for this city council to be aware of.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's the reason I'm bringing it. I'm going to vote for this because I think it's very helpful for the council to know what's going on here.
All right. I can give a real short overview of what this contract will do. It is a partnership with the USGS, and I will also caveat this is probably in about 3 months, I'll have our water team and the USGS team come and do a full, thoughtful presentation for you. But essentially, if you've recently seen some of the struggles that the state of California has had, and as they've utilized very similar technology to fly over their reservoirs and aquifers to really get a sense of what the water-bearing capacity of their soils are so they can appropriately spot wells and harvest water in the right spots even during a drought, we'll have this same capability. It is a cooperative effort with USGS. They're going to pay for about 40% of the study. Our share is $357,000 over a 4-year period of time. We'll have similar aircraft like this when we go to market to actually hire that contractor to fly our well field. Next slide. The area that we'll be flying is the Big Sioux Aquifer, essentially between the airport and Del Rapids. And it'll give us essentially a very good location to place our next 2 horizontal collector wells. We've got one set of 5 vertical wells up in that area that have they don't reach their capacity anymore, and then there's another what we call 6-pack. So we funded the design for 2 additional wells, one in 15, and then our plan was to build them in 16 and 17. And we've just recently delayed the design of those until we can get the results of this study so we can be very specific on what the capacity of those soils are. The nice thing is once that model is built by the USGS team, they can then start to model with 1 year of drought, 2 years of drought, 3 years of drought, and then you'll start to see heat maps on still where the best location is to place those next wells. And so, again, in about 3 months, I'll probably have my water team and USGS come here, but we would urge your support of this contract.
Councilor Staggers, did you want to make a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second, Anderson.
There's been a motion by Councilor Staggers to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Jameson,
Yes.
Karski,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson, Erpenbach. Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 20.
20 is a new 2015 package liquor license for Come and Go LLC, Come and Go, to be operated at 4721 East 26th Street, CUP not required. 21, new 2015 package liquor license for Come and Go LLC, Come and Go, to be operated at 501 North Minnesota Avenue, CUP not required. 22, transfer of a 2014-15 retail malt beverage license with video lottery terminals from Aceva Inc., Sneaky's Chicken, 4211 West 12th Street, to CSB Inc., The Keg, 4211 West 12th Street, full-service restaurant, CUP not required. 23, new 2015 retail wine license with video lottery terminals for CSB Inc., The Keg, to be operated at 4211 West 12th Street, full-service restaurant, CUP not required. 24, special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for Avera McKinnon Foundation, to be operated at Vera Behavioral Health, 4400 West 69th Street, for the Hearts in Healing fundraiser on February 7, 2015. 25, special one-day malt beverage and one-day wine licenses for Catering America, Inc., Chef Dominique's Catering, to be operated at Orthopedic Institute, 810 East 23rd Street, for a Vibra Healthcare presentation on February 10, 2015. 26, special one-day wine license for Marquette Council to be operated at the Knights of Columbus, 315 North Summit Avenue, for a fundraiser on February 14, 2015. 27, special one-day liquor license for Hy-Vee Inc., all occasions by Hy-Vee, to be operated at the Point is to Serve Church, 506 North Kiwanis Avenue, for a special event on February 14, 2015. And item 28, special one-day wine license for the Democratic Forum to be operated at the History Club, 758 South Phillips Avenue, for a fundraiser on February 12, 2015.
Good evening, Jamie.
Good evening, Jamie Palmer with licensing. Items 20 and 21 are new requests for come and go locations. They currently both hold packaged malt licenses at their locations and just want to be able to add liquor to their stores. 22 and 23 are for the keg. The first one is a transfer of the current retail malt beverage license, and the second is an addition of a new wine license for their business. And the remaining items are all special one-day requests.
Thank you. Council, any?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Thank you, Councilor Rolfing.
Second, Erickson.
Thank you, Councilor Erickson. On a motion to approve these items, seconded by Councilor Erickson. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach? Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 8-0. Item 29.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at the southwest corner of East 26th Street and South 6 Mile Road from the AG Agriculture District to the RS Single Family Residential Suburban and CN Conservation Districts, petition number 2045-2014, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Jason Bieber with Planning and Building Services. This is the applicant and owner of this property is Ronning Companies. It is located at the southwest corner of East 26th Street and South 6 Mile Road. The size is roughly 80 acres. And the purpose of this rezoning is to construct a single-family residential neighborhood with some conservation area used for detention in the center portion.
Jason, thank you. Folks, this is a second reading. There's going to be a number of second readings, and you have the opportunity to engage the council on any of these items. Would anybody want to engage the council on this item? Thank you. Councilor?
For approval, Anderson.
Second, Erickson.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Erickson. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach? Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 30.
All right, item 30 is second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 2024 South Main Avenue from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the RT1 Single Family Residential Traditional District, petition number 2015-2014, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Yes, the owner and applicant of this property is Greg Hintgen. It is located at 2024 South Main Avenue. It is a corner lot. The size is roughly 0.21 acres. The existing property is a single-family residential house, and the purpose of this application is to continue to utilize the property as single-family, but do more of a traditional single-family zoning for some of these core lots within the inner part of the city, smaller lot, corner lots. The applicant is looking at constructing the breezeway and then that new garage and to create a courtyard area just south of the breezeway.
Thank you, Jason. Folks, again, second reading. Anybody want to engage the council on this topic? Councilors?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Second, Karski.
Councilor Bach has made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Karski. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Item 31.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 1624 South Doodler Drive from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the RA1 Apartment Residential Low Density District, petition number 2055-2014, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
The applicant for this project is Eric Willardson. The owner is Rod Fitz. It is located at 1624 South Doodler Drive, which is northwest of the East 26th Street and South Sycamore Avenue intersection, just to the west of the existing Hy-Vee. The property currently has a tennis court that's in disrepair. The purpose of this particular rezoning is to construct a small parking lot on the south portion of the lot. This parking lot will require a level A buffer yard on the north side to protect those single-family residential neighbors to the north. And as you can see by this slide, the proposed parking lot is only a small portion within this zoning area. And there were some residents that spoke at the Planning Commission, had some concerns on the way the property is being currently run with traffic and some health concerns. So I believe they may be here tonight, and the applicant and owner also here to address maybe some of those concerns.
Thank you, Jason. Did anybody want to speak to this item? Councilors?
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Karski. Councilor Karski?
Just question, Jason. Are there plans to construct anything on this property other than a parking lot?
They're showing actually on the site plan a new two-story apartment building and associated parking lot to the west. As we look at the zoning map here, that already is zoned RA1, so they have the right to go down and get their building permit to construct that without this rezoning. The major reason for this is to construct a small parking lot on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. There has been a motion and it has been seconded. Thank you. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 32.
Mayor, I need to recuse myself on this.
Councilor Jameson, thank you. Appreciate that. Item 32.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 1600 and 1608 West Russell Street from the commercial neighborhood and streetcar district to the C3 commercial community district, petition number 2057-2014, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Yeah, the applicant and owner of this property is Charles Brennan. It is located at 1600 and 1608 West Russell Street, which is just north of the Sheraton Motel. The parcel is roughly 1.99 acres, and you can see by the aerial there's two existing buildings within the parcel. The purpose of this proposed rezoning is to construct a retail building of larger than 25,000 square feet, utilizing, I believe, one of the existing buildings and then constructing an addition onto it.
Thank you, Jason. Did anybody want to speak to this item in the audience? Councilors? Oh, yes, sir. Come forward, Mr. Weiderman. Sir?
I just have one question. What is going to be constructed on that? Is that where that pawn shop is supposed to be?
Jason, would you please just briefly touch on that?
Yep, I believe that's the location of the proposed Badlands Pond.
Thank you. Mr. Weiderman, did you hear that, sir? Thank you. Thank you.
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Karski.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Karski. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Thank you. Item 33.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 4804 and 4808 South Louise Avenue from the RD2 Townhome Residential Suburban District to the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar District, petition number 2058-2014, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
The applicant for this property is Raquel Blount from Lloyd Companies. The owner is Beatrice Hansen. It is located at 4804 and 4808 South Louise Avenue. The existing parcels contain, I think, a fourplex and one twin home that will be redeveloped. The size is roughly 0.77 acres. The purpose of this redevelopment is to redevelop the two lots into a multi-tenant retail center. There was some question on access. The south access they will share with that existing retail center on the south. They will be provided an access on the north side of the property that you can see there, with the intent that when the property to the north redevelops, that access will be removed and they will then utilize an access for all of them onto 55th Street.
Thank you, Jason. Did anybody want to engage the council on this topic? Councilors?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second.
Councilor Rolfing has made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Karski. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach. Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 34.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property east of North Cliff Avenue and south of the Burlington Northern Railroad tracks from the I-2 Heavy Industrial District to the RI-1 Single Family Residential Traditional, REC Recreation, and RA3 Apartment Residential High Density Districts, petition number 2056-2014, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
The applicant here is Ryan Reitz. The owner is Chip Carlson and Harold Gooden. This is located on east of North Cliff Avenue and north of East First Street, just south of the existing railroad tracks. The size of this parcel is roughly 16.4 acres, and the purpose is to construct a multifamily residential use in the northwest portion of it, then with a park in the center, and then construct some single-family traditional homes on the east side of the property.
Thank you, Jason. Anybody want to engage the council? Yes, Mr. Weinerman, welcome, sir.
A question pertaining to this is, do they own the right-of-way of the Burlington Railroad track yet? Or is this going to encroach on that property?
Jason?
If Mr. Weideman is talking about the right-of-way to the north, they do not own that, and this property will not encroach onto the railroad right-of-way property. They do have the old railroad right-of-way that's on that south portion, that's the green area. That is part of their project.
We'd like, Mr. Weideman again.
Yes.
Sioux Falls. Be interested in finding out when, before this is approved, when they acquired that railroad property, because right now there's an investigation going on a lot of the railroad property because it should be reversion and not purchased from railroads.
Councilors? Any, Jason?
I think a better question, or that'd be a better question for the applicant when they acquired that property. I wouldn't have any idea.
Very good, Jason. Thank you. Appreciate that. Councilors?
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Erpenbach.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Urban-Bach and Councilor Staggers.
Yeah, is the applicant here so we could ask? Okay.
Todd Meyer, 315 South Phillips, Sioux Falls. Ryan Reed sitting right here. Also, I can answer that question. It's a long answer for railroad property. It all depends on how it originally was acquired. Yes. Whether it was acquired by the United States of America, then it's required Congress Act. If it was fee simple land, which a lot of this was, that land, once it did not become railroad property, the railroads, assuming that they were functioning in a proper corporate entity, can deed it and sell it away. These two parcels, both this and across the street, were sold when the railroad came out. And we will get title insurance, and title insurer will insure title to these properties, so that's who we rely on.
So just to clarify, once again, the owners of this property actually bought it then?
Correct. They bought this property from the railroad, who owned it in fee simple. It is not a right-of-way. It's fee simple ownership, and so you buy it. If it was just a right-of-way and it was vacated, then the owner who originally owned the land, usually abutting, or in occasions like this, sometime in the late 1800s or early 1900s, it may be a party that is of record, but has long since passed away and we lost track of. But this was actually in the title of the railroad company.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Councilors, Mr. Weiderman, we're past public testimony. Thank you, though, sir. Appreciate it. Appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Councilors, there's been good discussion. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jameson.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 35.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, repealing sections 95085 to 95091 of the Code of Ordinances of said city by repealing the Sioux Falls Ice and Recreation Center Board.
Don, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Don Kearney with Parks and Rec. The Sioux Falls Ice and Rec Center Board was originally created when the city acquired, at the time, the Minnehaha Ice and Recreation Center. And with the recent closure of that facility, there is no longer a need to have that board. And so we are recommending that we repeal the ordinance that created the original board, and be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Don.
Move for approval, Anderson.
Thank you, Councilor.
Second, Erickson.
Councilor Anderson Jr. would like to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, February 10th at 7 p.m. for this item, and seconded by Councilor Erickson. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jameson.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 36.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, providing supplemental appropriations and clarifying the limitations on expenditure of funds and contracting authority for construction of an indoor aquatics facility and associated site improvements, the project.
Tracy.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Tracy Turback with the Finance Office. As the title of the ordinance indicates, this relates exclusively to the Indoor Aquatic Center project. The ordinance has three sections. The first, section 1, is the supplemental appropriation portion of the ordinance that would add $3.3 million to the project budget. That amount coming $2.8 million from unobligated capital surplus dollars from 2014 and $500,000 from a restricted donation received from the Bradfeld estate. The second section of the ordinance expressly limits the expenditures on the project to the amount appropriated by the City Council, and Section 3 provides the authority to enter into contracts that provide for payments beyond the end of 2015. That particular provision necessary because a portion of the project will be funded with 2016 revenues. With that, I would request that you set the second reading and public hearing for Tuesday, February 10th. Thank you.
Tracy, thank you, councilors. Any questions, comments, motions? Councilor Erpenbach.
I just ask one very basic question, and I do know the answer, but Tracy, remind us, how much of our property tax dollars go into capital expenditures like this?
None.
Thank you.
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second, Erpenbach.
Councilor Rolfing's made a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, February 10th for this item, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. Councilor Jameson. Did you have I'm so sorry, sir.
Oh, no, thank you.
You're welcome.
Tracy, you had sent out an email to us early this morning, or this after 11 o'clock this morning, answering a lot of questions that I had regarding the reserve funds that were being used from last year, and a lot of great dialogue here. The problem is that it's just not a public dialogue, and that's part of what I was asking for. And I know we got another week, and I don't know if we've got plans to have this reviewed in our informational next week. But in all of this effort of building this great indoor pool, we're giving up on the transparency of this whole process. I don't think there's enough votes here to kill anything, but we're giving up on the process and not explaining the rationale that you've outlined very well here to the public. And I don't know if we're planning to cover this, but I think we owe it to the public to do it. And if I could, just relating back to the National Citizen Survey we just finished, and when we make our plans from, some of the numbers were rate the quality of services provided by the city, and the worst one was street repair. Of all of our services, 45%. That's all they rated our street services, street repair. Rating the importance of investing money, number 1 was streets. 2 was traffic flow. 3 was parks. Parks is right there. But of all the things that we're doing the worst at, it's street repair, based on the opinions of the public. And we just had a press conference talking about how valuable this information is. Now, I think it's very valuable to fund the indoor pool for sure, but we've got to explain to the public why it's more valuable than addressing these other issues. That's all I'm asking for, is a solid line of debate, an open forum to discuss it, show the public that we've reviewed all of these things that in great detail, like Tracy has outlined in this email, but we're just not sharing it with the public. And we've already heard discontent from some people, but I think if we go through all these pieces, we'll show the public that we've got a pretty good plan here. We just need to execute it. So,
Councilor Erickson?
Thank you. I was not here during the time that we met, so I hope you offer me a little leniency here with some time, because I don't know that I have an actual question, but I just, again, want to make sure that the public is fully aware of this. It's a project I support. I think it's great. I think that our community is asking for this facility. But when we had in September Woods Fuller in front of us, and they gave us this document that we went through, the Indoor Aquatic Center. And in that document, it outlines what we are paying them, which is great. They are providing a service. They're very reputable companies. We need to pay them. But that's not included in this $23.66 million. And my numbers are a little bit off here and there. But I just quickly did this last time. And then I redid it with our new numbers. And so if you take that 23.660 and take the architect fee, which is at 6.75%, that's $1.597 and $50 plus reimbursable expenses. The construction manager gets $95,000 plus 3.5% cost of work. So we get that deal of, if you go over 23 and some change, too bad, they have to cover the extra, which I like that it's locked in. I think that protects us, it protects the taxpayer. But that is about $828,000 for a roughly total of $923,100, which in the end we are paying 2.5 and some change plus reimbursable expenses. That's not included in this $23 million. I agree. Let's build it. Let's do it. That's great. But let's tell the community really what we're paying for. And on top of that, that doesn't include the park improvements, which are about $500,000 to $800,000. I know I haven't gotten all the money in that as well from the 2015 CIP. Could be off on my numbers. I apologize if I am. But I just want to drive home the point of making sure that the public is completely clear on top of that. We do need to pay for it, and they do deserve the funds to be sent. But when this money that was, the extra $4 million that was found, and I know there's other people that have wanted to do community projects and partner with the city that we're putting on the back burner as well. I know Howard Wood was a hot topic at one point. We use their parking lot, and they've asked for help, and that's not worked out. Again, I support this. I don't want my words to not be taken in the way that I do not support this. I will vote for it. Our community, I think, will benefit from it. But I just want to make sure people understand all the numbers that go into this, because I don't think it's maybe been clear all the time. But again, I support it.
Tracy, would you address that, please?
May I?
Please.
I'm not completely sure I followed all the numbers you went through. You went through them quite quickly, and I wasn't writing them down. But one thing I can assure you is that all of the costs of the aquatics facility project are included in that $23.7 million. So the architect's fees are included in that, the construction manager's fees, the cost to actually construct the facility, as well as the parking lots. What else? We've got an owner's representative, that's fees that are included in that, the legal fees that you mentioned. All of those costs are included in that $23.7 million.
Tracy, thank you.
One other point I might make, if I may, you did mention the other park amenities or park improvements. There are, essentially that park is going to be completely rebuilt when it's done. All of the tennis courts and Don might have to help me out, picnic shelter and those things are not included because that's not part of the aquatics facility project itself. Those are costs that would have been incurred, and we incur them on a regular basis. Every year a park or two will get rehabilitated. This year it just makes sense to do Spellerberg in conjunction with this facility.
Absolutely. And make
so
the whole
all of those
thing
costs are, with the exception of the rebuilding the tennis courts and those things that I mentioned, are included in that 23.7 million.
And thank you for
hard
clarifying.
and soft costs.
Because I asked that question back then, and I'm going to go through and look at my notes, and I'm not saying, I'm not debating you on that. So thank you for clarifying. When I asked that question, it was, well, this is just for the pool, the 19,760. So I'll go back through, and if I misspoke, I apologize. But I want to make sure that those numbers are separated out to know why we're at that cost. I mean, you can't build something for free. It just doesn't happen. So it's important that the public knows that this amount is also included in there or not included in there. But I know I asked that back in September, and I wasn't given a clear answer then. So thank you for clarifying.
Councilor Karski.
First of all, to probably address Councilor Jameson's concerns, I guess I totally agree with, we do need to talk about what projects are out there, what other money is there, where do these all fall into line. And we, at our informational next week, would probably be a good time to do that, if that gives you a week, Tracy, to kind of, with that list, to talk to us about what is on that list, and we can discuss the money. And I know there's other, we're not totally at, we know exactly this amount of money, and you gave us a very conservative estimate on what was left for capital surplus and what was left in the budget. And I think there's probably extra money there too from what we've heard. So, this is a conversation we should have publicly so that people know, are we not doing some parks projects? What are we doing? When are they going to be done? And we're just at our fiscal committee meeting an hour ago, we talked about in the last budget cycle, culture and recreation spending actually has dropped from 42% of our budget down to 27% under the capital program. And highways and streets has increased from 47 to 61%. So, let's have this discussion and let's talk about this. And I think next week's informational meeting would be a good time to do that.
Councilor Staggers.
Yes, excuse me. This ordinance that we're looking at right now talks about $3.3 million. Can you explain what are the other 600,000s?
I'd be happy to. The other 600,000, as I did discuss at the informational meeting last week, and then as I mentioned in the email that Councilor Jameson referred to, will come from the Parks and Rec Department Capital Improvement Plan. They will be reprioritizing projects both in 15 and in 16.
Will we be voting on that or not?
You will certainly vote on the changes to the plan for 2016. That will be programmed into the plan that you see later this summer that's presented to you for 16 through 2020. The other 300,000 is something that administratively, according to the city charter, can be dollars can be moved to the aquatic center project. And the way I would encourage you to look at this is that by ultimately, I'm hoping you will approve this supplemental appropriation ordinance for the project, and by doing that, you are endorsing the overall plan, which would include the $300,000 in this year's parks budget that would get redirected to the aquatics facility project.
Okay, I'm just a little confused. We've got in this proposed ordinance, we have 3.3 million. Okay, then you mentioned this other 300, you mentioned 600,000, which is going to be coming out of the
Approximately
CIP.
half of that would come from this year's existing parks capital improvement plan,
Okay.
and approximately half of it from the 2016 projects.
And the administrative thing that you mentioned, the 300,000.
That budget has already been approved by the city council. According to city charter, the administration has the ability within a department to redirect funds. So that 300,000 for the projects that have already been put into the budget can be redirected by the administration.
Okay, thank you.
Council, has been some very good discussion. There has been a motion to set a data hearing and second reading, which will allow you to have much more conversation as well as public input as well as the opportunity to have more discussion at the informational next week. has been suggested by Councilor Jameson and Councilor Karski. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jameson.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Thank you. Then it's passed 8-0. Item 37.
First reading and ordinance approving the Surface Ambulance Service Franchise Agreement between Paramedics Plus LLC and the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, along with authorizing the mayor to sign the same.
Yeah, Councilor Karski, thank you. Councilor Karski is going to recuse himself. This is a first reading. Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Answering first Councilor Erickson's question, as we discussed at the 4 o'clock meeting today, there are no stays in place by any court at this point in time. We are urging a continuous operation of ambulance service 24/7, 365 that our citizens expect. If and until a court grants a stay of any kind, legally you can act upon this particular ordinance. The administrative enforcement stay that's being referenced and bandied about in the public media involves the administrative appeal ordinances regarding the stay of a fine or a penalty regarding an administrative enforcement action. This is not an administrative enforcement action in front of this body. You are approving the granting of an exclusive franchise, which is done under charter. It's not an administrative enforcement action, so there is no stay in place, Counselor, at this time. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
If I may continue, Mayor?
David, please.
I will briefly describe what the contract before you is. It is essentially incorporating exhibits A and B are the request for proposals that was issued on July 18th of 2014, and then the Paramedics Plus response to that proposal dated October 9. And what the contract is very short on purpose because through the various meetings with stakeholders, you folks, all the public meetings, everything that took place, everyone agreed upon what should be in place for the requirements for this ambulance franchise. Those are all incorporated by reference into this contract. The contract itself contains very few additional terms beyond those exhibits. Probably a couple to be aware of is the protection of protected health information is a unique section in there, and that involves where about 10 years ago there were some issues involving where some medical services companies were offshoring some of the services, billing and the like to offshore companies. This prohibits that, and why it does so is that HIPAA, or our confidentiality laws, apply in the United States. This makes sure that that could never happen. Some other very brief things to keep in mind is this is a no subsidy system, as we indicated at the 4 o'clock. The Paramedics Plus LLC would be held to all the commitments they've made in both their RFP response and in the contract itself. This contract would be performed to the personal satisfaction of the city, which means they can't just perform at a minimum level, they have to perform at an optimum level. They've agreed to do so. There's a performance security bond of $1 million that would be immediately accessible in case there is a default by Paramedics Plus, and the city would need to go in, take over the ambulances themselves, run the service until such time as another provider could be provided. That provides us an immediate cash flow of $1 million to do that. The default and emergency takeover provisions really outline from the RFP exactly the types of default that would take place. Legally, I need to mention the indemnification provision that is also included in the RFP, where they are providing the city, you folks, everybody involved with either a REMSA board or the medical board, city council, city employees, all of us would be indemnified by Paramedics Plus for any lawsuit regarding their services they're rendering under this contract. We have the required civil rights section where they would be complying with our civil rights ordinances. They could modify the agreement only in writing. And then I think that covers it. If I'll let Jill then discuss exactly more of the detail. Thank you.
Jill, welcome.
Good evening. Jill Franken, Public Health Director for the City of Sioux Falls. As you know, our current contract for exclusive franchise agreement for ambulance service ends May of this year. A council-approved audit was completed in 2013, and it recommended using an RFP process and also recommended contracting for professional services with an industry expert. We engaged with one of, if not the leading expert in the area, Dr. Jay Fitch with Fitch & Associates. When Dr. Fitch met with over 30 stakeholders, the following were the clear priorities for our community: that clinical quality was paramount, safety and response time performance matters, demonstrable experience providing high-quality EMS and capability of integrating into a complex healthcare delivery system. User fees were preferable to a subsidy to achieve the clinical service levels required and to maximize inclusivity of the applicant pool. We followed the American Ambulance Association recommendations and guidance, which is considered best practice guidance for requests for proposals, which this was referenced in the internal audit and also recommended by Dr. Fitch. We received 4 proposals. They were scored, and 6 of the 7 panel members scored Paramedics Plus the highest. Paramedics Plus leadership team, which is being brought for you in this contract for first reading, is led by Ron Schwartz. He's a president. He actually attended University of South Dakota, and he worked for the Vermilion Ambulance Service for a period of time. Mark Postma, who's vice president and actually is a Sioux Falls area native, and his parents actually live in Sioux Falls now. Mike Bureau will be the chief operating officer and just made Sioux Falls his home within the last week, and he is actually here in the audience tonight. He will run the Sioux Falls operation, and others on their leadership team that you'll become familiar with in the coming years, should you approve this contract. They are a sole provider in multiple geographically diverse regions. They serve over 2.8 million population. They have annual transports of over 270,000. They provide 911 and non-emergency service. Paramedics Plus scored high in quality performance, and some of the reasons for that is all their systems are CAS accredited, which is an accreditation we're familiar with our ambulance service currently operating. Unique, though, is that their Florida operation is actually triple accredited, not just CAS accredited. So 2 other accrediting bodies have also deemed them worthy of accreditation in Florida. They are recipients of, in Florida, of the Sterling Award, which is based on Baldrige criteria, the highest award for quality won by a U.S. EMS agency. They also are recognized for their cardiac survival rates, being amongst the high in the nation in a couple of communities they serve. So the core requirements that they are being held to include response times, equipment and supply requirements, staffing levels, levels of certification and licensure, clinical performance meeting approved medical standards, comprehensive quality improvement and compliance activities, dispatch performance standards, accurate and timely reporting, customer and community satisfaction. And then there's competitive criteria that they were scored on and are included in the RFP, and that's commitment to clinical quality, their operations management, their commitment to employees, management, administration, and EMS in the community. So with that, I am pleased to be able to tell you that we have worked very diligently on this approach. It's been highly inclusive and collaborative. We've used local and national experts, subject matter experts, and resources to execute an objective process for the residents of Sioux Falls. The aim is an exclusive franchise agreement requiring no subsidy, ensuring best practice, high-quality ambulance services will be provided to the residents of Sioux Falls. I want to thank the folks that are here tonight. There's some folks from our REMSA board, folks from our REMSA medical board. There's project team members that are here and stakeholders as well. So thank you.
Jill, thank you so much. David, thank you so much. Council, any questions, comments, motions?
I'll move to set the second hearing for Tuesday, February 10th at 7 p.m.
Second, Kylie.
Thank you so much. There's been a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, February 10th. That was made by Councilor Rolfing, seconded by Councilor Kiley. Any discussion? Yes, Councilor Staggers.
Yes, Joe. The American Ambulance Association, you mentioned that you tried to follow their standards. Can you tell me, when it comes to standards, do they support the idea that when you do ambulance service on a non-emergency basis, let's say between one hospital and another hospital, it has to be just one ambulance service that does it, or can many do it?
Well, I'd have to, review exactly what they said in their guidance, but that is considered a necessary element of a high-performance EMS system, is to be able to assure that they are able to have exclusive rights to both 911 and non-emergent transport in order to be able to have enough transport volume in a community of our size to be able to be a viable entity, independent, and generating enough revenue to cover their costs.
Okay, because what we're dealing with here is a contract to provide for a legalized monopoly.
Correct.
That's what's going on. And I guess I'm wondering about that non-emergency transport. Am I correct or not? Did we used to allow an outside company come in and do non-emergency transport if the hospitals wanted that company? They didn't want it, they could have rural metro.
The only way they could provide it outside of this agreement are for any ambulance services that are not beginning and ending in the city limits, or that are provided through the VA, which has they are an exception to this, as well as the penitentiary. But otherwise, any ambulance service, non-emergent or emergent, beginning and ending in the city limits would be through the franchise agreement. That's been in place for many years.
Yeah, but my understanding is that we used to have a situation where we could have another ambulance company coming in and doing the non-emergency transport. And then a few years ago, the city decided, no, we're not going to allow that to happen anymore. And so then we gave that service completely over to rural metro.
That's always been a part of the exclusive franchise agreement, are all emergency and non-emergency transports beginning and ending in the city limits.
I mean, if the VA can get out of it and the penitentiary can get out of it, why can't Avera and Sanford get out of it?
Those are both entities that are, they have specific, I don't know, Dave, what you would call that.
It's a matter of recognition of sovereign power in terms of state government, federal government versus us.
Yeah, and we could go ahead and recognize Avera and Sanford as being private entities, that we're just simply going to allow them to make their own choice what ambulance service they want to have, instead of us telling
I'm
them.
not recommending that. I'm recommending the contract that's before you tonight.
Right, but I'm just saying, we could if we wanted to do that.
I'm not recommending that.
Why not?
Because of the reasons I've told you.
Because we want to give more money to the ambulance service that we're contracting with. I mean, that's what it boils down to.
Councilor Erickson.
Just for clarification, Attorney, can you address that? Because they are not sovereign, Sanford and Avera are not sovereign entities. It's not the state government or the federal government that are, am I following that right, or can you expand on that?
Yes, Counselor, they would be subject to the ordinance. And again, as we indicated at the 4 o'clock, the leadership of both Avera and Sanford Health Systems, as well as the Heart Hospital, were involved in discussions from the beginning with the consultant, Dr. Fitch, and they all were in agreement that this exclusive franchise agreement should continue as modeled in order to ensure the viability of the system. And I read off at the 4 o'clock, certainly some Eighth Circuit case law and findings where if a private ambulance company is allowed to just come in beyond that exclusive franchise operating agreement, what happens is 911 calls suffer in terms of care and response times. And in that case, it was a specific Kansas City, Missouri case where in the late 70s and early 80s, the city of Kansas City was having extreme problems where a bunch of private ambulance companies were happy to take the non-emergency calls that were more profitable and leaving the city left to dry on a number of the emergency calls. And so the court found in particular that the exact same exclusive franchise model that we are operating under, where, as Jill indicated, the emergency and non-emergency calls originating and ending in the city are all covered by one provider. The Eighth Circuit specifically blessed that and indicated that it was perfectly legal.
Well, you know,
Councilor Erickson, you had the floor. Did you have any follow-up?
No, that's the line I was thinking, and I just wanted to hear it from you.
Thank you, thank you. Before I go back to Councilor Staggers, Councilors, did you have any other comments before we move on? Very good, Councilor Staggers.
I was just going to say, you know, I'm not sure where that case came from that went to the St. Louis Circuit or Court of Appeals. We're Sioux Falls. We're a different community than probably, well, I know we're different from that community that was taken to the Eighth Circuit. But the thing I'm just trying to say here is that we're not mandated to create that monopoly. We're not mandated to do that. I don't know of any court case that mandates us to do that. All we're doing, or at least I think what should happen here is at least we should have some competition.
We do.
And you can have some competition simply by allowing transport between the hospitals or however they want to do it. And, you know, for the argument that there were a couple of them represented in this process, well, they say they go along with it. Well, let them go ahead and go along with it voluntarily. They don't want to use another ambulance service, that's fine. But I don't see why we should be mandating Avera and Sanford as to what ambulance service they should take.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.?
Fortunately, we don't license hospitals. That's one good thing here, like we do ambulance service.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.?
Jill, just one question. Right now, is Rural Metro providing that non-emergency service for the hospitals?
Correct.
Thank you.
There's been very good discussion. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jameson,
Yes.
Kiley,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Staggers,
No.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
That is passed 6-1. Thank you. Item 38.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving the naming of a facility space on public property.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, members of the public. My name is Russ Sorensen, Urban Planner with the City of Sioux Falls. This item is a city naming application that's before you, and the SMG and the Sertoma Butterfly House in Marine and Cove, they presented an application known as the Sky and Fin Family Zone, which would be located on the northeast corner of the second level concourse of the new Denny Sanford Premier Center. The applicants have indicated that this would be a child-friendly area within the portion of the Premier Center, and city and Premier staff, along with volunteers from this Butterfly House, would provide staffing during the scheduled events. The Sky and Family Zone is an area that would incorporate 2 colorful murals that would be painted and provide science and educational opportunities relating to interesting oceanography and animal displays for young children. This is a 5-year sponsorship agreement until December 31st, 2019. There were no public comments received, and the naming committee unanimously recommended approval of this naming application in December of 2014.
Thank you, Russ. Councilors, any motions?
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Rolfing.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson, Jr. Thank you, Councilor Rolfing. Any discussion? A roll call vote, please. What we're doing is we're setting a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, February 17th. Thank you.
Council members Jameson.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Anderson. Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Item 39.
Thank you. Again, Russ Sorensen with the City Planning Office.
I need to read
Russ,
that
yeah,
real quick.
thank you.
Excuse me. A resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving the placement of a sculpture on public property.
Thank you. Again, Russ Sorensen with the City Planning Office. This is a resolution before you this evening regarding the placement of a sculpture on public property. I have this evening Garrett Delaney and Ellie High Street, along with the sculptor Darwin Wolf in the audience this evening, and they're representing the Sioux Falls Firefighters Benevolent Foundation, which is a private foundation, and they have commissioned sculptor Darwin Wolf to sculpt a life-size bronze of two vintage 1910 firefighters, a veteran and a rookie, that would pay tribute to the Sioux Falls Firefighter Service, the past, present, and the future. The proposed sculpture will be life-size, measuring about 6 feet 5 inches in height, 5 feet in width, and 70 feet in length, and weighing about 500 pounds. It'll be placed on a concrete base, accent up lighting, and placed within the new landscaped sculpture plaza area located on the south side of the existing Sioux Falls Fire and Rescue Headquarters. This, depending on the fundraising, they would like to unveil this finished sculpture within the plaza area during the month of June 2015. At that time, it will commemorate the 135th firefighter anniversary, in which fire chiefs from across the country will be present in Sioux Falls. The Visual Arts Commission recommended unanimous approval of the sculpture design as presented and depicting the orientation facing in southeast general direction from the intersection and providing landscaping, bench seating, and lighting around the sculpture plaza area. There were no public objections expressed.
Russ, thank you so much. Is there anyone in the audience who wanted to speak to this item? Very good. Councilors?
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Kylie.
Councilor Anderson Jr., I think, got it in, and I think Councilor Karski was second. But thank you. Good job. Thank you.
Close third.
Mr. Mayor, I think
You were close third, yes?
I think it'd be interesting. I see the artist, the sculptor has a mock-up or whatever.
Very good,
It might
Darwin.
be interesting to bring that forward so we could, people with Sioux Falls could take a look at that also. Having dealt with one of these projects before, I know that it's a lot of work, and it's coming from the heart, and I applaud them for doing this. I think it's wonderful.
Well, thank you. Yes, Councilor Anderson Jr.
What will be done with the mock-up when you do the full-size model?
I'm sorry, yeah. My name is Garrett Delaney. I'm the president of the Sioux Falls Firefighters Benevolent Foundation. I'm also a captain of Sioux Falls Fire Rescue. These mock-ups there'll be several of these bronze sculptures. They are going to be for sale, and we will also have some resin copies that will go for sale also to help fund project.
Be a good paperweight on the mayor's desk.
It would look great on the mayor's desk, yes.
Thank you, Councilor.
I thought maybe the chief's desk would be more appropriate.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Yes, Councilor Karski.
Darwin, do you mind coming up, please? Known Darwin a long time. He did our statue of Pettigrew downtown. He's an excellent artist. Darwin, you're working around town. I know you've been at Sanford, you're at Avera, you've been at the event center. I've seen you all over the place. How many hours is this going to take you to complete this project?
I don't keep track of hours. I go by months.
Months? Yeah. Yep.
This was a 2-month project, and I've got 3 months into the large-scale piece. I've got a month left to do about 2 months worth of work, and it's the first time anybody's heard that, so. And I think that'd be a nice paperweight for everybody's desk.
Just want to give you the recognition you deserve for the work you do. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, definitely.
Darwin, thank you, Councilor. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. There has been a motion. It has been seconded. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jameson,
Yes.
Karski,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 40.
Item 40 is a resolution including certain contiguous territory within the corporate limits of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, annexation 2050-2014 USF.
Jason Bieber again here with Planning and Building Services. The applicant of this project is Eric Willardson. The owner of this parcel is the University of Sioux Falls. It is located east of South Cliff Avenue and north and south of East 77th Street. You can see the map in front of you. It's south of the USF Stadium and kind of south of Sioux Falls Christian also. And then proposed Highway 100 will back up to the south side of this property. The purpose of this is to construct commercial, multifamily residential, and institutional development. It does meet the comprehensive plan, and as you can see by the map, it is located within Tier 2 of our growth management plan. Water will be available with the conclusion of the South Cliff project that is scheduled for 2015. They'll be reconstructing the street and running our water service down it. And then there is sewer is currently available to this site. There is also some wetlands on the property. They have been working with the Army Corps of Engineers, and they have a determination of where those are located and have proposed their rezoning plan, which will be coming next month, indicating those areas as conservation areas. And then there was a question about kind of how far this goes with the city, so I provided a larger map kind of zoomed out, as you can see it there in the south, and we have South Minnesota Avenue. That's where the new Walmart will be at 85th in Minnesota. So you can see it's not quite the southern portion of town, but it's getting pretty darn close to it. Happy to answer any questions.
Jason, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak to this item? Council?
Move for
Guess I better
approval.
leave.
Move for approval, Anderson.
Councilor Staggers is going to recuse himself for this one. Thank you, Councilor.
Second, Erpenbach.
He is now gone. Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve it, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. Councilor Erpenbach.
Yes, thank you. Russ, could you go back to that? There's a drawing earlier than that. Maybe this one shows, are we creating more pockets of city limits again by doing this? And is that a concern?
Not with this particular application. It is contiguous on the west and north, and it's only a matter of time before that little tiny parcel on the north here is purchased and part of this development. They're working, I think, to purchase that, or several people are working to try and purchase that parcel, and eventually that will be part of the City of Sioux Falls.
Well, there's another map in that stack that you've got there that shows kind of some bubbles, like that one. Are those bubbles where there's not, look at
Are you
those.
talking about the ones? Yep.
Those are city. Those are pockets where that's not city inside those bubbles, right? I mean,
Correct.
I'm just concerned that, we talked earlier, Kendra was talking about, we have like 50 parcels we're looking at that we want to bring into the city limits. Well, there's some of them, and I'm just concerned we're just creating two more that are potentially those kind of bubbles, and it'd be just nice to do them as blocks rather than itty bitty pieces. Not that I'm voting against it, but just.
And we do try and promote that with the applicant to work with that other property owner to annex in at the same time, because we want to see that also. We don't want the pockets like we have over there in Hayes Addition and then the horse farm up on Southeastern and 57th. Sometimes people just aren't ready to do it, I guess, at this time, but with it being contiguous on the west and the north, it still seems like a good time for USF to do this section.
Cool, thank you.
Councilor, thank you. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jameson,
Yes.
Karski,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Thank you. Item 41.
41 is report of the January 27, 2015 notice of transfer of appropriations within major organizational units.
Councilors, thank you. I know you've had an incredibly busy day today, one of the busiest in a long time. Thank you for your stewardship. your leadership. With that in mind, would anybody want to get out of here?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. And Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to adjourn this item, seconded by Councilor Rolfing. Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned, Sioux Falls. Make it a great, great night.